Welcome to Ready Set RC, guys, and today we have the Team Corally Kronos V2. This is a 1/8 scale brushless monster truck. I think it's more of a muggy than it is a monster truck. It is a Truggy style format, low slung, wider stance, and it has pretty much the monster truck style tires on here, guys. So I think of it more of that muggy type style monster truck than your traditional monster truck on this. It is ready to run. It has 3 diffs in here, and as we open up the shell, we'll show you guys what that looks like. And they are touting 62 miles per hour on this, guys. I would imagine that's on 6S, but you'll see why I'm probably not gonna push it that hard. This is a 4S and 6S rated RC. It has XT90 plugs coming off of the ESC. In the transmitter, you will need 4 AA batteries. That will be required to run the RC. Also, you will need the LiPo batteries to run on the RC, and you will need a charger for those batteries. The Kronos V2 comes with a transmitter. They're stating the range on this is 300 meters. It comes with a sensorless brushless motor, 4S to 6S capable. You also have a 185 ESC on this, and it is 150 amp. It is 2S to 6S capable, and you also have a 25 kilogram high voltage digital metal gear servo. Guys, let's get into the Kronos V2 and see what it's all about. Well, let's talk about what comes in the box, and it's very slim, guys. There's not much stuff that comes on, which is why I would probably say this is more so an RC for people who are a little bit more experienced. You have those tools and sets that are out there, but we'll go through what comes in the box. You get the SR2 transmitter, guys. This thing feels really good in the hands. It has a foam wheel, has a lot of trim adjustments on here. You have a bind button, you have steering reverse, you have throttle reverse on here. The on-off switch is back here on the rear. As I mentioned before, takes 4 AA batteries. It is a 2-channel transmitter, but there are so many adjustments on this, guys. Like servo reverse, steering dual rate, throttle positions where it's a 50-50 or a 70-30. You have endpoints adjustments as well. Quite a bit is offered in this very simplified remote, guys. You get an antenna tube. There's not one installed, so this is if you plan on putting an antenna tube on, you can install one on. Owner's manual for the controller, owner's manual for the ESC, and a quick start owner's manual for the RC. Quite a bit of information, guys. It talks about your shocks, your diff setups, and I think this is going to be the part where if you're truly going to want to run this on 6S, this is the area you're going to really want to look at, guys. I strongly believe, from what I've seen on other videos, to run this on 6S out of the box, you're going to need to start tuning out those diffs. And even if you look at this page here, guys, it tells you some recommended diff settings, meaning what diff oil you want to use in the front, center, and rear. I would even go more, just based on what I've seen on here, what comes in its stock. What comes in this stock right now, you have 20,000 in the front, 100,000 in the center, and 10,000 in the rear. From what I've seen, you may want to go a little bit more on that, but that's what comes in here on the stock settings. And that's their stock settings for a bashing. You also get blowouts of the entire truck and a pretty extensive parts listings, guys. This is a decent, I wouldn't call this a starter's guide. I would call this a true full-fledged owner's manual. It comes pretty detailed, and if you get a moment, look through it. Really wanted to get this in our hands. Got this by means of my wife. She got this as a Christmas gift in the year of 2020. But here we are, guys. The Kronos V2 out of the box. The shell on this just pops. I mean, it just has some great coloring, great shape. Love how this thing looks. I mean, I really do appreciate it. The body pins that are on this, they are tethered. It's a nice little touch. A lot of companies now are starting to tether their body pins to them, and it really does help when you're out in the field and these body pins pop off. You're still able to have them attached to the RC. Great touch. There's a bigger cutout in the rear, and that's mainly for the flex that does occur on the RC so that you're not tearing up your body holes on your RC. So I'm liking that they're thinking of these things ahead of time. time, rather than coming to a point where you ripped up your body and you just got to replace them. Feeling the quality of this, it feels good, guys. I mean, it doesn't feel super thick, but it doesn't feel like a throwaway thin body. It does feel pretty good in the hand. What I'm not seeing on here is that there are no areas that are kind of pre-marked or pre-covered with any type of protection on friction. I will be going through and doing that to the body because I know, you know, just offhand with most of my Truggy style monster trucks, that this does tend to happen. You are going to start seeing some rubbing out on there. So I will be protecting that on this truck as well. As for the tires, I will say, guys, I've already started to do my own altering on these tires. I have taped the inside and I have drilled out 2 holes on each side of the tires just to give me a little bit more performance. From what I saw out of the box with these tires, they're extremely soft. And you know, I've seen quite a few videos with them and they do balloon quite a bit. And all the guys that I have watched as of late haven't spoke about doing this to the tires. I do this to most of my tires, and I think this one really will need them because they are super supple, guys. I mean, you guys are probably not seeing that as clear on the video, but they're really soft. I have to see how these perform on the first run, and then maybe I'll even move off to another set of tires, but I'm noticing that these are super supple, guys. As we're going through this, I'm noticing that the links on the front and rear, they're all fixed. It is a plastic link that's going in the front and in the rear. As for any adjustments, what I'm seeing that you are able to do some adjustments based on the front, because the front does have pillow ball adjustments on this, and you're able to make some adjustments there. But outside of that, the links and everything else seem to be fixed. Looking at the shock mounts, there are 2 available shock mounts on the lower, about 3 shock mounts on the upper, and that's in the front. As for the rear, it looks like the same deal, guys. You have 3 adjustable shock mounts on the top of the shock tower, and down by the support arms, you have about 2 adjustments down below. And this front bumper I'm seeing on the Kronos is actually a 1-piece skid plate that goes on in the front. It just screams stability, guys. I can't wait to get this out for the first time and really test this and put this through its paces. But I do like what I'm seeing here. Coming off of that, you do see a sway bar in the front. I'm looking at some pretty beefy lower support arms coming off there. There's a CV style drive shafts coming in the front. The links, the steering links that I'm seeing here, they are fixed. They are plastic, but they do feel firm in the hand, guys. They do feel firm. There are some adjustments going off in the front. There's a pillow bowl style suspension in the front, so there are adjustments there if you plan on doing anything in that sense. You have a plastic chassis brace coming off in the front here as well. Coming off the steering, we have a servo saver going on there. What I'm noticing too is that rear drive shaft is pretty long. And if there's any flex going on in the rear, and I'm pretty sure from what I've seen on most videos there is that possibility, depending on how hard you push this RC, to bend rear center drive shaft. A pretty sizable battery tray, and it is adjustable from what I'm seeing. So the batteries are fixed with a Velcro strap, and the center differential on this has a metal body, guys. That's really cool. I really do like that. And coming off to the rear, we have 3 composite chassis braces going on there. The shock tower is metal, fixed links in the rear, dog bones in the rear, guys. In regards to the shocks, we have a metal body shock with a metal shock cap, and it is a screw down style shocks, guys. In regards to the servo, you have that 25 kilogram metal geared servo going on there, and it has a metal servo horn also attached to this. You have the 185 150 amp ESC, and that's coming with XT90 connectors on here. As for the motor, you have a 4-pole 2050 kV motor. As I stated before, this is 4S and 6S capable. Looking at it underneath, we can see once again the metal chassis going from front to rear, and I'm seeing these skid plates that I mentioned before on the front and on the rear. I mean, this just screams extra strength on this, guys. I really can't wait to get this truck out. Another thing that I did see on this truck, you are able to set the droop on the front and on the rear on here. There's screws already in there to set the droop on this truck if you want to. So if you're looking to do speed runs on this, you could definitely set the droop. One of the things that I had read up on this is that the bearings in this entire truck, they're rubber sealed bearings, not metal sealed bearings on here. Here we are, guys, the Arrma V3 Kraton and the Team Corally Kronos V2. Right now, this is the only muggy that I would compare this to that I currently own. I do own the EXB of the Kraton, but I don't think it's a fair comparison between the two trucks. I think this is probably the closest one in my collection that I could compare the Kronos V2 to. And I'm gonna do a little bit more than the typical size comparisons that I do between the two trucks, because as you guys can see, the sizes are pretty much there. I know a lot of people compare the Kronos to the Kraton and they say that it's a Kraton knockoff, but once you see the two trucks underneath, you'll see that this is nothing like a Kraton. It doesn't even resemble it. I mean, you pretty much can say that every Truggy is a Kraton if that's the case. But just touching on sizes, guys, these are not the traditional wheels that you would see on the Kraton, any Kraton. These are the Proline Shockwaves. It's a much smaller diameter tire than what you're going to see on the Kronos. I even believe it's a smaller diameter than what you would see on the typical Kraton. I do like to run these based on the current diff oil setup that I have. This truck has some upgrades onto it, so when I take off the lids and you guys see the two trucks, you're going to see a little bit more going on the Kraton right now. But typically where you would see metal, it's more so plastic. And even this bumper that's here, this is an RPM aftermarket bumper that's on it. Typically you would only see the short bumper that you're going to see underneath. I think for the most part the ride heights are about the same. The Kronos is showing slightly higher than the Kraton V3, and I think that's because it's where it has the taller tires that are on here. But for the most part, the ride heights, I would have to say they're about the same on the two trucks. This is the Kraton V3, which is the first year that Arrma raised the ride height up a little bit on this truck. So you are noticing it is probably, if you guys who own the V2 or the V1, that's what you're seeing on this, is just it's a little bit higher up. As for the wheelbase, hopefully you guys are able to see that as well. The wheelbase is identical. There's not much difference here on the wheelbase at all. For the most part, you're looking at trucks that are pretty much going to be the same size, and that falls under any truck that kind of falls in that Truggy class. As for the width, you're probably seeing that the width on the Kraton looks a little bit wider. Actually, I would more so say that the offset on the Shockwaves is a little bit wider than anything. There is a significant offset on the Shockwaves, and that you will pick up on the Kraton, but for the most part, the width is about the same. But let's get into this, guys. Let's get into the inside of the two trucks. Metal body, but you can see from the front, you can see metal body shocks going on in both trucks. You can see metal shock caps in the front as well. What I'm noticing is that the hinge pin holder on the front of the Kraton, it's metal, plastic on the Kronos. The increment adjustments on the Kraton, they're metal. They're fixed on the V2 version of the Kronos. On the V1, it was available with adjustable links, but they've noticed some issues with that and they've changed that on the V2 for a basher style truck. Several mounts that you see, it's more of on an angle on the Kronos. On the Kraton, it is a horizontal style setting on this. You have a metal servo horn on the Kraton, metal servo horn on the Kronos. You have a servo mount on the Kraton. It's also plastic. Servo mount on the Kraton is plastic. You'll see metal on mine because that's an upgraded part. It is a plastic mount on the Kronos, and it seems to be fixed with the entire receiver box. Front drive shaft is at a slight angle on the Kraton, a more severe angle on the Kronos. You have a plastic chassis brace coming off the front of the Kronos. Metal on my Kraton, and that's because that's an aftermarket part. Technically, it is a plastic chassis brace that comes on the Kraton, front and rear. You can see is a little bit larger battery tray on the Kronos. on the Kraton. It's adjustable. It was one of their new later designs that were on here. I believe it was first done on the Typhon and then it was added to the Kraton afterwards. But that's their new chassis layout design that you see on here. The chassis that's on the Kraton and on the Kronos is about the same thickness, but what you'll notice is that on the Kronos, the metal chassis is not as wide. On the chassis on the Kraton, you will see it is a wider chassis on the Kraton. As for the motors on both trucks, identical. You have a 2050 kV motor on the Kronos, 2050 kV motor on the Kraton. On the ESC on the Kronos, you have 150 amp ESC, and on the Kraton also has 150 amp ESC. These are stock electronics that you're seeing in my Arrma Kraton. Coming off on the Kraton, you will see that there's adjustments coming off for the suspension. On the Kronos, it is once again on the rear, it is fixed. So coming off on the rear, you have a metal shock tower on the Kronos, same as you have on the Kraton. 3 adjustments on the shock tower on the Kraton, 3 adjustments on the shock tower on the Kronos, 2 adjustments on the support arms on the Kraton, 2 adjustments on the support arms for the shocks on the Kronos. You do have a sway bar kicking off on the rear as well, dog bones in the rear as well, adjustments to the suspension on the Kraton, fixed adjustments on the Kronos on the rear. But as I said, guys, in regards to as for skid plates, you have a skid plate on the Kraton, and that's an aftermarket part. It's actually an RPM part that you're seeing on here. Typically, there is no skid plates on the Kraton. You have skid plates on the front and rear on the Kronos. I'll bring out one other Truggy that I do have, guys. It is a true Truggy, so you can see what it looks like. And you'll see that the Kronos is just a typical Truggy design. It is not a copy of the Kraton. Okay guys, here we are. This is my Losi 8T 1/8 scale Truggy, guys. And you can see once again exactly how this is laid out and how it compares to everything else. The only thing that you're not seeing, since this is a true Truggy, it does not have that shell or body support mount that you see on the top here. But if you look at the layout of the 2 trucks, you're seeing what I'm talking about, guys. You have the servo, pretty much where a Truggy style servo goes. You have the motor in the same placement, ESC in the same placement, battery tray, same placement. There's not much difference. Because this is a Truggy and not a monster truck, you'll see that the center drive shaft is not as beefy as the Kraton or the Kronos, and that's because this is a Truggy. It's a race style truck. This is not really a basher. I do run it, but I don't beat on it as much as I beat on my Kraton. But you guys can see where it's just pretty much the same design from one Truggy to the next. And you'll see the offset of the front center drive shaft. It's just like you see in the Kraton and in the Kronos. It's just another design within a Truggy style vehicle. If you look at the front and the rear and how it's supported and how it's set up, same as you see in the Kronos that you see within a Losi 8T. Since it's a Truggy and it's more racing, you're going to see the adjustments in the front and the rear, tons of adjustments in the front and the rear. Metal shock towers in the front and in the rear, sway bars front and rear, dog bone styles in the rear, CV's type setup in the front. What you will notice in the Losi, and this is typical for Losi though, no pillow balls going on in the front. But you can see the similarities between the 2 trucks, and this is just, as I said, another Truggy. It's not a monster truck, but this is another Truggy. And it's just the same, guys. And that's pretty much what I want to show you, is that the Kronos is just another option out there. It is not a copy of any truck. But that's it, guys. We've done an unboxing, a quick overview of the Kronos V2, a comparisons between this truck, my Arrma Kraton V3, and a quick comparisons with just a traditional Truggy in the Losi 8T to give you guys a comparison between the 3 trucks. But please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram for our latest post to the channel. This is Ready Set RC signing out. Thanks again, guys.